Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanyuin Academy series, and this is English Nerd. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Jake Ruddle, who is my audiobook narrator. He's been doing such a fabulous job, and so I am just thrilled to be able to talk to him, as much in person as we're able to kind of do these days, especially since you're from the UK. You said it was Bristol, I think.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Bristol on the west coast of incredibly cold U of K. It's
It's been weirdly warm here, so maybe it's all for the best that it's cold over there. But anyway, I had some questions for you. Just starting with, how did you get into audiobook narration? I know it's something that's such a mystery to a lot of people. So how did you begin? How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it for I started about 3 years ago, and yeah, it's like almost 4 years ago, and I've been making a really concerted effort over the last year and a half, and it's been something that has been a slow build. Um, Originally, a lot of people you'll speak to say, "I've been told that I had a really nice voice, and I decided I would try it out." Things like that. Nothing like that. I think I just saw a Facebook ad for Amazon and Audible's self-publishing platform, ACX, and I had a look into it, and I thought, "Huh, I love to read. I read voraciously, and I can't get enough of it. I am a pretty performative person anyway. This will be a pretty nice, easy little get rich quick scheme." And it wasn't. It is a have fun over a long period. But it's slowly becoming more and more what I'm doing, and becoming more and more of my every day, which is exactly what I want. And yeah, it's amazing fun.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I know that audiobooks are generally on the rise, but they can be, especially for indie authors, um, kind of difficult to wrap your head around. So, why should authors consider audiobooks?
The boring answer is that yeah, they are the fastest growing market in the publishing world, and it's becoming more and more accessible with as technology develops and the internet develops, and the simple access to narrators and writing develops. We are now the most well-read, well-spoken that the human race has ever been, and that's leading to more people reading and more people telling stories, which is amazing. More importantly, it brings, like for me, it brings a new way of appreciating a book. Um, I consider listening to an audiobook reading. And I don't say I'm listening to this book. I'm reading this book. Um, but it's not reading because you're not reading the words. You're receiving a performance, and that performance is one of the most incredible things. In the same way as television and films give you a performative take that an actor has received from something, audiobooks give you the same thing. Listening to an audiobook is different to reading the book because you're listening to someone else's opinion of it, and the way that they, as a professional and as an actor, are able to give that story life, which is amazing. Um, and also quite close to my heart is that accessibility is a really big thing. Um, if you are hard of sight, if you are very old, if you struggle to read, then audiobooks give you access. My grandmother was an English teacher for decades, and she hated audiobooks, and she laughed at me when I first said that this was a thing. And she said, no, I won't listen to audiobooks. But as her sight began to fail, suddenly audiobooks became the way she could appreciate her books. And that is so important. And it's not just accessibility because of people being differently able. It's people who are busy, people who are time constrained, people who commute, people who work, people who don't have time to read. audiobooks give you access to books again, because we live in a steadily more difficult world with less and less time to find.
Yeah, that was so well put. And those are some reasons why, I have not entirely switched my reading to audiobooks, but so much of it, like the percentage is enormous compared to what I actually read physically. And it's because I can do it while I'm, exercising or cooking or driving or, doing these other things because I am so busy. And I've heard from one or
It's
two people who are looking forward to Firian Rising, the first audiobook, because they haven't been able to read the physical version of it themselves. So yeah,
They
that's
do two different jobs. I read to appreciate the nuance of a piece of writing. I read because the words on the page mean something. The structure of a piece of writing means something. And I listen because the characters and the story and the performance mean something. And those are two different things. So I've often read a book with my eyes and with my ears, and it's two different readings, and they just do different things, which is absolutely amazing. And to be part of that is so much fun.
yeah, gosh. So for people who don't know, basically, what is the process of creating an audiobook? Like, what are
So
the
it depends how you're coming to it. Traditional, there's sort of two avenues: traditional publishing and indie publishing, in the same way as there's two avenues coming to a printed book. And if you go through a traditional publisher, then it's sort of a fire and forget situation. They will source you a narrator. If they are a publisher who deals with audiobooks, then they'll source you a narrator. You don't need to worry about it. They'll just produce a book, and then it'll be on sale, and it'll be amazing. Um, if you are an indie publisher, or somebody who is self-publishing, then there are a bunch of different ways to access the wealth of people out there who can narrate audiobooks. There are platforms like Audible's ACX, there's Findaway, there's Spoken Realms, there's loads of different places where you can go that will connect an author with their narrator, and forge this relationship, which is able to then lead to creating these audiobooks. And each of them has a different process and a different way of doing things. But generally, those are these sort of aggregators are the way that you will be able to create something that then reaches the markets that you want it to go to. Because at the end of the day, we're not just sat around a campfire telling stories. We are creating products to publish, and this is a business, and that is a big part of it. And I think it's really important to recognize that, and the fact that we can reach so many people through so many different markets, thanks to things like Amazon and Findaway, are able to bring these books to so many more people.
All right. So you've been doing this for a few years now. You have a backlist of works that people can find.
Small
Um,
backlist.
well, I mean, it's a backlist. It's enough to call it
We're
backlist.
getting there. We're getting there.
What are some things, since you've worked with a few different authors, that you wish more authors knew about working with a narrator? Like, what are some pieces of advice that you would give?
Think on what your narrator's voice is. And this is something that I think I understand is relatively standard within actually writing a book, is that the narrator has a voice. But actually, you take that to another level when you bring it to an audiobook, because not only does the narrator have a voice in the mind of the reader, but the narrator has a voice in the mouth of the narrator. The narrator of your story is a character who the actor who is going to be creating the book needs to be able to embody. Um, a lot of the times, that narrator is really clear, and really evident because of the way of the writing. With Firian Rising, it's been really lovely having the different structure, the way that the book is structured across two main protagonists. They each have a narrator who is distinct and separate from those characters, and has a character of their own, which is really lovely. But the voice of that narrator is absolutely vital, because 90% of the book is actually the narrator speaking rather than dialogue. Yeah, that's like a really, really big difference between listening to a book and reading a book, is that the narrator is no longer your own internal voice. It is the characterized voice of the actor, which is great.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess the other thing to think on is that time frames are way longer than people ever expect. Um, in order to create an hour of finished audio, an average audiobook being about 8 hours, an hour of finished audio can take anywhere up to 6 or 7 hours to produce, because we have to record it, we have to re-record it, we have to do all the corrections, we have to do all the editing, all the different things. This goes for indie narrators specifically. There is so much time that goes into this. Time frames are so much more than someone expects, because it takes you X amount of time to read a book in your mind, and that is extended massively by then reading it out loud, which is extended again by making an actual performance and an actual product of this audiobook. Yeah, and it's something that authors appreciate eventually, but when they first start out, it can be a bit shocking to people just how long things can take sometimes.
I feel like you've been zipping through the book faster than I expected, because I know it does take a while to prep and record and edit and re-record and edit again, and all of that. But you know, Firian Rising is pretty long, and it's only taken you what, 2 months to do the initial
It's been
recording.
2 months in the principal recording. I am in a very, very lucky position to be able to afford to farm out my editing. So hire in an editor to do the bulk of the end work for me. So that speeds things up dramatically. But within indie audiobook production, sometimes people will do their own editing, and sometimes they'll get someone else to to do it. And it's just, there's all these different things which affect things like that. The nice thing is that because Firian Rising flows so well, it's able to get through it really, really effectively within the booth. I mean, I don't feel the need to go over and self-direct and repeat lots of bits. I can just move through the story in a really, really smooth pace, which definitely helps.
Oh, thanks. So kind of switching gears a little bit, I was wondering, since you do read so much and you have chosen to just include stories in so much of your life, what are some of your favorite tropes to see in books in general? It definitely doesn't have to be just mine, but just what are some of your favorite tropes that make you go, ah, yes?
I had to have a think about this, and one of my favorites is, because of the importance of a narrator character to me in my work. Having a good narrator character is just gold. Having a really, really salty narrator who is just totally down on the characters, or just full of opinion about what's going on in the world that they are watching, is so much fun to work with. And as a reader, there's nothing that makes me laugh more, which is brilliant. Um, World building and journeying through a world is my other favorite thing, because I come to these stories in order to be taken somewhere. I work primarily in fantasy, because British voices tend to just lend themselves in that direction. That tends to be where we go. And I read fantasy for pleasure. That's my go-to genre, and that's where I get to go on a journey to somewhere where I can relate to it, but I've never been there, and that is so exciting. It's not really a trope per se, but that is the thing that I really find value in any given story. Yeah, that freedom is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's nothing else is quite like it if you're completely absorbed into this new experience and this new world that otherwise you never would have been able to know on that level. Yeah. Yes, I agree. So with Firian Rising specifically, did you have any new sorts of challenges? Again, I know you've been doing this for a few years and it's been fantasy mostly, but anything that came up?
Um, the breadth of characters, the variety of characters is um, always a challenge, and it's been a real challenge here because we've got so many different sort of factions vying for control, and different characters wanting things from different people, and so fantasy is typified by having a huge cast of characters. But something that's really been challenging here is that it's a huge cast of recurring characters. It's not just the bloke in the tavern who gives you a quest. It's these guys are coming up over and over again, and having to keep all of them organized is always a massive challenge. It's great fun, and it's so much. So it's a very good challenge to have. But that's something that's definitely been more so of a challenge here than anywhere else before.
Yeah, that's a reason 512 that I did not do this myself or even attempt it, because I knew that things like that were just going to be beyond what I was able to do, and I needed somebody who was an actor who could actually do all those recurring characters, because they do show up. They show up in the second one and the third one, and
Mm.
yeah. So I don't envy you, but I feel like you've done a very good job. So speaking of the characters, since Firian Rising, the audiobook, is coming out so soon, who was your favorite character to bring to life in the big cast?
It was actually Kyria. I was surprised because normally I resonate with male characters, and I I wasn't expecting her character to be one who I really connected with. Um, but she absolutely was. I can totally relate to the struggles that she goes through, and to the way that she has had to sort of bring herself up through all of these challenges. Sounds a bit melodramatic when I say it out loud, but yeah, I really felt the sort of nuance and challenge of her character. So working with her has been really fun. Um, and of course, Jory is one of my favorites because he's just a salty dog, and I love that. And his voice is so much fun to work with. And any excuse to be sassy is much appreciated.
Yeah, well, he is that. Ah, cool. So I'm gonna start wrapping things up. How can people find you and your services online if they want to?
So I have various social medias: Jake Ruddle Audio, Ruddle, and yeah, if you are looking for me in specific platforms, then that's the name I go under. If I'm doing romance books, then I go under JT Ruddle. And yeah, it's just a matter of finding me on Facebook. I have finally got Instagram, which is quite a big deal for me. And yeah, I'm slowly building my social media up. I've spent the last couple of years working hard with coaching and sort of developing my skills, and I'm now stepping out into the light, and really looking to broaden my horizons as a narrator, and working on this trilogy is an absolute godsend, and a brilliant opportunity. So yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, well, it's definitely been my pleasure all the way through. And I'll put those links down below as well if you want to find him on all the different platforms. Also down below, I'm putting a link to join my newsletter if you're not already joined, because I'm going to be giving away a free audiobook through Audible. So if you're interested in hearing Firian Rising for free in exchange for just an honest review that would help out the two of us, then definitely sign up. I try not to ever spam anybody. It's always either new awesome releases or bonus content. So yeah, check that out. And I wanted to end with a clip from the audiobook so you can hear some of Jake's work. So Firian Rising, if anybody has not read it out there, is a young adult fantasy about Firian who joins an elite academy of mental warriors, and he's determined to be the best at any cost. It's only after he meets Kyria, the heir to the throne of the Western Kingdom, that he starts to realize that that cost might be his humanity. So he has some, well, everybody kind of has some hard choices to make there. So that is it. Make sure to subscribe, like this video if you like it, and here is a clip from Firian Rising.
By the time it was clear what Firian was doing, Kyria had already watched him for too long. He was somewhere in the palace. If he had been looking for her, he would already be in her mind. No, this was a military assassination. He seemed to be by the Amiran rooms. In the darkness, she saw the round lamps and the colonnade. He entered one of the rooms. Not one of the primary advisor's rooms, not Dalen's. She didn't know whose it was. Rather than stall to figure out the target, she bolted down the hallway toward the door. Her serving girls and ever-present guards followed behind her. "A doctor! I need a doctor!"